It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
This is Football at 4. It's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And it is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. So, Nick Siriani spoke today at Eagles camp. The whole Dillard-Mailata thing, they both spoke yesterday. And I wrote about that at 97.3ESPN.com if you want to check that out. You know, the whole dynamic between Mailata and what's going on with Dillard. I think that is something to watch. Andre Dillard is a guy who, remember, was drafted in the first round, and the Eagles traded up for him. And I wonder where Howie Roseman's head is with that whole situation. You know, hey, I got this guy. We traded for him. We traded up to get him. He was a guy that we really targeted in the draft, and they go and get this guy. So the word competition is one that new Eagles head coach Nick Siriani has stressed since he's been hired back on January 24th. And the thing that Nick Siriani said, right, was the thing that's important to me is that we compete every single day. We compete every single day. It's just like the important to practice, to play good, to get at that play so you can run it in a game. It's important to practice competing, he said. He said the parity in the league is so tight. Every game comes down to a one-score game. We have to pour that into our DNA here in Philadelphia. In the meeting room, it's important that we compete on the field and also off the field. We're constantly going to be competing with each other. That's what Nick Siriani said back on January 24th, which was my birthday, by the way. I always will remember now, Nick Siriani was hired, I should say. He didn't say that on January 24th. He actually said that on January 29th, which is my cousin's birthday. But the word competition is the big word for this offseason. And one of the top competitions for the starting job will involve Andre Dillard and Jordan Mailata. You know, that to me is the biggest one out there. So, as we know, Sirianni comes in, competition, he you know, in his opening statement, essentially, he talked about competing and competition. It's important that we compete every single day. And one of the top competitions is, as we mentioned, Dillard versus Mailata. And yesterday, Adam Kaplan joined us. He said it's an open competition. But he says we're heavily believing Mailata will win it if we put odds out. Now, Dillard, of course, missed all of the season with a torn bicep. He struggled his rookie year filling in for Jason Peters. With Dillard out last season, Peters got injured. And then Mailata stepped in, and he opened some eyes. I mean, Mailata is a hulking man with very little football background. He was drafted as a project. He played Australian football rugby. And after dealing with injuries and then learning a new game, he finally got a chance. And what he said yesterday was interesting. He says, I still have to earn my place. I'm still trying to prove to myself that I am a dominant left tackle in this league. You know, Mailata, it's interesting. And Andrew DiCecco will join us here in just a second. I want to get him on and get his thoughts on this. But Mailata's interesting. Mailata, to me, reminds me of like Joel Embiid. I just said he has very little football background. But the stature, the footwork, and it seems that he just has this natural, innate ability. And I'm wondering if the Eagles are saying, man, we got this guy. We had a first-round pick. Is this a real competition? As much as they're stressing the word competition. Andre Dillard made it sound like, hey, this injury may have been the best thing that happened to me. Let's bring Andrew DiCecco into the conversation. Now, Andrew, we heard those guys both yesterday. It's interesting that they had them both talk on the same day because obviously they're going to be competing with each other. But when you hear Jordan Mailata yesterday, he sounds like a guy that, kind of knows that I got the talent. I'm good enough. I want to be the best left tackle in football. I mean, I heard Mailata yesterday and just felt more confidence exuding from him than I did from Andre Dillard.
Yeah, but I thought you also saw some humility from Andre Dillard. He realized what he needed to work on. He mentioned that he got stronger, more confident, got rid of the social media and everything. So he seems like he's primed and ready for a camp battle. And like you said, it's going to be a competition, and no one's going to be handed the job as well as Mailata played last year. He's still going to have to earn it. They're going to give Dillard every opportunity to win that job. Obviously, they invested significant draft capital in bringing him on board. So, I mean, they're going to give him every opportunity, and then if he doesn't win or doesn't capitalize on his opportunities, then I think you need to see where he fits, and if he doesn't fit in the puzzle, then you're going to have to look at potential trade scenarios.
Yeah, yesterday Dillard said losing a season to injury makes you see things in a different perspective. He said it lit a huge fire in me, a fire that I have never felt before. Isn't that something that has been questioned about Dillard, right? Isn't that one of the knocks on him is that he didn't have this mean streak? He wasn't the toughest guy. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes out a different guy from all this.
Yeah, I mean, give him credit. He said all the right things, and he got stronger. He hit the weights and everything, but it's also about the mindset, right? He needs to prove that on the football field because you can win a lot of people over in a press conference, but then you have to take that and translate it onto the football field and, cash those checks, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
There's no question. I mean, of all the competitions, right, we've kind of, looked at different things around the field, but those two yesterday, I think that's probably the one starting job that is definitively up for grabs. I feel like a lot of other competition that they keep stressing is for backup positions. But this one here, this is definitively for who will be the starting left tackle for this team this year. And we've heard so much about, hey, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Kelsey, Sayamala. This left tackle is pretty important.
It's arguably the most important position on the offensive line, and it's going to probably come right down to the wire. If Dillard comes back like we all expect him to be, stronger, bigger, tougher mentally, kind of battle tested, understanding what he needed to improve on, and then you got Mailata, who's going to do nothing but he's very much an ascending player. He's going to do nothing but really take that next step. He's very new to the game of football, but we saw a lot of encouraging developments from him. So I mean, he's going to give Andre Dillard everything that he can handle in training camp. And you talk about there hasn't been that many camp battles in recent years. Well, this is not only a pivotal one, it's two players that are very much at different ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, Dillard seems to be on his last opportunity in Philadelphia to win a starting job, and Mailata seems to be the odds-on favorite, but I don't necessarily view it that way. I think the Eagles would ideally like to see Andre Dillard win that job, but I mean, we'll have to see what between the two players.
Yeah, that's interesting because as Adam and I kind of touched on a little bit yesterday, but I want to hear your opinion on this as well. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here, is if Dillard doesn't win the job, he doesn't have a lot of versatility. At least Mailata, if he doesn't win the job, you could play him at right tackle. He can kind of be that swing tackle. You wonder if that's almost a hindrance to him winning the job.
Yeah, that's kind of ties into what I've been saying for a couple of weeks. Is like if he doesn't win the job, what do you do with Andre Dillard? He can't really provide any kind of versatility other than tackle. He didn't play right tackle particularly well. He's a left tackle, but he can't play guard. And, I don't know that he can be a swing tackle. But, I mean, what do you do? I mean, I think that he suddenly becomes a player that can be thrown into trade talks late in the summer for teams looking to bolster their offensive line depth or looking for a starter. A lot of guys go down in the summer, and I think when you look at Andre Dillard, he hasn't logged a lot of snaps in the NFL, but he's a little bit older. I think he's 25, maybe 26. I think he came into the league at 24 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, teams are gonna bite if the Eagles put them out there, and the Eagles need help at corner, and they also use help at linebacker. So I mean, there's going to be opportunities when they upgrade the roster. Should it not work out with Andre Dillard, but we have to let it see how everything plays out, because that press conference the other day, was very encouraging from what you heard from him. Now we just got to see it translate on the football field.
Right. I mean, the summer is about words, and here and now their mindsets change and who comes in differently. One guy I want to ask you about, and actually, before we get to jump to the wide receivers, that's where I want to go next. But Sirianni was asked today about the interior line guys, and he was asked, he said, hey, you have Quentin Nelson, now you have Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, and how important those guys are to his offense. And he really put them at the top. Like, these guys, he said, are so important to what they do. And he stressed again, here's a guy who's a wide receiver coach, and there's some interesting things about the wide receivers from today that I want to touch on too. But it's definitely not lost on me anyway that he values this offensive line. He mentioned Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, Dillard, Mailata, Driscoll, and he realizes that for my team to succeed, those guys are the guys. And he said it. We have a special group here.
Yeah, it's good to hear him say that. I mean, they need the offensive line. If you don't have you have a lackluster offensive line and a lot of moving parts, I mean, the offense it's not gonna work. So they are at the top of the list, which is why in the draft I held offensive line in high regard as far as what the Eagles should do when they were sitting there at 6, because you can never have too much depth there, and you're never too solid on the offensive line, right? I mean, things happen all the time, and it can really spiral a season if you don't have, a plan B. Should, one of your starting linemen go down. But, yeah, I mean, I thought that it was interesting to see him put the emphasis on the interior linemen, and they don't necessarily get a lot of praise, but they keep the interior pass rushers out of the quarterback's face. They allow him to stay in the pocket, move around the pocket, and do a lot of different things, which makes the offense flow.
How important in your mind, Andrew, is what's going on right now? People are like, you don't get much done here. It's just, but they didn't have this last year. How important are these couple days for Jalen Reagor and to some extent John Hightower, Quez Watkins, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who has been in most people's mind a bust? How much is what's going on right now helping those guys out?
Well, it's going to be very instrumental to their development, because when training camp happens, Mike, things are fast and furious. There's not a whole lot of teaching that really. I mean, you're kind of thrown in there, and it's a different environment. It's very intense, and a lot of guys can kind of go into their shell, and you kind of come in behind. You don't want to come in behind the 8 ball, which is I felt like a lot of rookies did, because they didn't have that sort of loading period where you're kind of filling out the coach, getting to know your teammates. You're not really being thrown in there. So I think that instead of being thrown in the deep end, they're kind of able to test the water and get a feel for things and find their footing.
Yeah. And because I saw a picture today, and I know it's just a picture and it doesn't mean anything. I'm not sitting here to tell people get excited and order your tickets, but I saw a picture of Sirianni just talking one-on-one with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And I'm thinking to myself, is there anything left in this guy? Is there anything that Sirianni can pull out of him? And I know you've kind of hinted at before that, hey, that maybe, but just getting like that, like someone paying attention to him that specializes in that position. I think that to me is going to be, they're going to have the next couple of weeks off. We're not going to see the Eagles do anything for about 6-7 weeks here. But he's one guy that if I'm going to training camp, Andrew, and they say you can watch one guy and tell me everything about him when it's done. I think he might be the one guy that I want to watch a lot of at training camp is JJ.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're alone in that. And this is the coaching staff for JJ. If JJ can't reach his promise under this coaching staff, it's probably never going to happen. The light's probably never going to come on.
Agree.
But you're right. I think that there still is something there. I think that there's a role for him. Do I think that he's ever going to be the player that they envisioned when they drafted him in the second round? Probably not, but I think he can be a complementary piece to the offense, a red zone guy, come in for a handful of snaps a game. Yeah, that's not gonna thrill the fans because of where he was selected and all the guys that have found success that went after him. But, I mean, I think that there's a place for him on the roster. There's going to be opportunity there, and I'm interested to see there's 3 coaches that are well-versed in the wide receiver position that are currently on staff. So let's see what they can get out of him.
Yeah, well, what you said, though.
This whole coaching staff is predicated on playing to their, adjusting to the players' strengths that they have. So let's see if they can kind of identify what his strengths are and utilize that to the best of his advantage.
But what you said is interesting, Andrew, which is like Nelson Aguilar after his first year, you were like, this guy's a bust. Well, here he is 2 years later. He helps you win a Super Bowl because they got, a change of position almost. He went from an outside guy. They moved him to the slot, and they got more from him. And, yeah, he wasn't a first-round pick productive, but he was a big part of that offense that year.
Exactly. That's a great example. And you might not get the best return of your investment on that, but I think it is salvageable. I think there's something there with JJ. Like I said, I don't know that he'll ever be a prominent wide receiver in this league or a bona fide star or anything like that, but I do think that he has certain skill sets that can be beneficial to an offense. Now it's just, can the coaching staff tap into that, and can JJ take what they're teaching and implement that into his game? Because you have to wonder where his confidence is right now. So I think that with him, it's kind of starting from square one and like a clean slate, and just like it is for any of those young receivers, it's a clean slate for JJ. Now he just needs to take what the coaches are teaching and really implement it if he wants to have a chance to stick around in 2021.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast at A DiCecco NFL. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We'll have plenty more from what Nick Siriani had to say. And if you want to read more about the Eagles' left tackle competition, just head to 97.3ESPN.com right now. All right, Andrew, have a great weekend, man. It's Happy Hour Friday. What do you got for me? What are you drinking this weekend? What do you got?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far.
All right, well, when you know, you let me know.
All right.
All right, man.
Take care, man.
All right, Andrew DiCecco here, Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.